What an awesome week it's been. We've had live Duke basketball of some sort, an open practice to the public, and a lot more people, it appears, this week are starting to talk about Jon Scheyer's bunch going into the new season.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. The Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. So great to have you here with us today on Thursday, August 7th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. We're talking a whole lot about men's basketball on today's show with our good pal Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated. We will touch on Duke football moving through fall camp towards the end of the program, but we got to talk about these summer workouts that the Hoops team has been having. Earlier in the week, they had a practice open to the public. Our guy Conor O'Neill was on hand, so we'll get the full breakdown of that as we go throughout today's show. Our show is proudly a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, where we're talking all things Duke each and every day. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to our podcast for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. And then also make sure that you go ahead and watch us each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are getting closer to 4,000 subscribers, less than 100 away. And I can't wait to celebrate that milestone with you guys when we get there. So without further ado, the aforementioned Conor O'Neill is here with me on today's program talking about Duke. We spoke last week, Conor, and as we mentioned, it was good to see one another in person at ACC kickoff. Now we've got kind of this down period before the live games start to happen in the fall. But how about a little curveball this week with Duke having a practice totally open to the public for folks to go in and attend?
Yeah. As I don't want to phrase this, it was a little disappointing we didn't get to talk to players and we didn't get to talk to Coach Scheyer. Anytime I go to Duke's campus, I want to be able to talk to people and have quotes to go with stories. I think that should be kind of self-explanatory for the industry. But I can get past that if we see something, 2 months earlier than usual. Like usually our first look at Duke in person is Countdown. So this was great. I thought this was great to be able to put eyes on the boozers, mainly the new guys. I mean, yes, we're looking at Isaiah Evans, what jumps he's made. He's hitting a game winner that looks like the exact same shot that he took, 50 times last year.
Yeah.
But in that situation, it's brand new. I don't know how many late game situations Isaiah even played last year. So it's so beneficial for us to see all that because it gives us a starting point for in the next 2 months when we talk to Jon Scheyer, inevitably, at Countdown, at Media Day, probably after that, I think it is on the calendar. We'll be able to say, at the end of summer, it looked like X, Y, and Z. Instead of trying to parse through those 10-minute highlight videos on Duke Blue Planet and try to tally up all the stats that they're showing you in edited clips and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's my job, man, is I will watch that thing over and over and over again and just let the people figure out who's making these shots, even though everybody's scoring in that regard. But you're right. It was awesome to be able to see this. I've already a lot of people last night saw that Duke did a Duke Blue Planet episode kind of behind the scenes a little bit with Coach Scheyer mic'd up at this practice on Tuesday, which I thought had several key takeaways from what I heard Scheyer say. But one of the big things was talking with Chris Carrawell over on the side about how, we've never really done something like this. This is awesome to see all these people here. And then also putting into focus what you just mentioned. This is it for Duke in the summer, right? Like this was one kind of last hoorah send off. The players get to go away for a little bit, come back for the start of the fall semester academically. And then before you know it, it'll truly be preseason practices and ramping up towards the official exhibition games and start of the year.
Yeah, that's the timing of these things. Like, usually the spring semester ends and players will get a couple weeks, maybe 3, to go home, go wherever, really. This is where some jokes on the social medias come up about Caleb Foster spending a month in Turks and Caicos with the rest of his Duke recruiting class. He wasn't actually there for a month, to be clear. And then you're back for summer, and you're on campus pretty much, unless you're like Nick Homenia was with Team USA. Where were they in Europe? Were they in Czechoslovakia or somewhere?
Yeah.
But mainly you're on campus for about 8 to 9 weeks, and so this was the end of that. This was kind of, I don't know if it was the officially last one. I apologize if I missed Scheyer saying that on the open mic, but
yeah,
this was kind of it. They'll get another couple weeks and then they'll report back. They'll get going in the fall semester, and then when practices start late September, right?
Yeah.
That's the timing.
Yep. And then now we know in October, they'll have Countdown to Craziness, and those exhibitions come to be and that sort of thing. You mentioned this kind of like being this early look, because it does take 2 months later, typically, that we're in October, you're at Countdown, and this happens. What we've noticed in the 48 hours that have followed after this open practice from Duke, fans that were there have put up long, extended video clips of the play that was there. And of course, Duke has done this mic'd up of Coach Scheyer. And so now the national basketball media at large is able to fire off some Duke takes. And for the most part, incredibly positive Duke takes, which is cool to see. It's a team that's obviously reloading without the number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg. But now that people have seen just a glimpse, they're already jumping to, wow, this Duke basketball team is going to be really special this year.
Yeah, and it's funny how people talk about Duke, and man, we're going to talk about this so many times in the next 8 months, 7 months, however long it's going to be. The analytics will tell you there's no way this team can be as good as last year's team, because last year's team was a once in a 10 to 15 years type of, analytically speaking, was that type of team and that talented a team with 3 top 10 picks. But and the entire starting lineup drafted. Can't leave that one out for Sion and Tyrese.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a really good team again. They're so talented. They bring back returners that have established roles and know what they have to do to increase their roles. You might go 1-1 again. I mean, Cameron Boozer, AJ DeBonsa, or Darren Peterson, it looks like take your pick of those 3 for who's going to be the number 1 pick. You might have a couple other first rounders. It's an embarrassment of talent, and it's embarrassment of riches for Jon Scheyer. The level to which they recruit, the level to which they develop, I think gets overlooked. But their development is the curve is so fast, and that again is why it's so valuable for us to see this in early August. We can see, okay, well, Cameron Boozer's shot was, I don't know the exact way to phrase it, but it was a little slow maybe in high school and in AAU. It already looks smoother, and that's just with a couple months on campus. So imagine where he's going to be in November when it's time to actually play Texas. It's that type of stuff, and I think when your Vicini's, Gavoni's, Goodman, whoever nationally is talking about Duke is able to kind of put eyes on, wow, this guy made a jump here, this guy made a jump there. Isaiah Evans, I don't know if this registered on the national takes, but I thought Isaiah Evans' defense was great, and I praised him for the jumps that he made during the season last year. But he's continued to get better on that end of the floor. Yeah, and that's going to make all the difference in the world for this team. And just you're able to actually see that type of stuff. You're not just saying, well, best case scenario, this guy winds up being better in this category. No, you can actually put some eyes on what they've worked on.
I saw earlier this week, we talked about it on the podcast here, Rothstein's tweet about Caden Boozer leading this team in assists over the summer. from a conversation that he had with Jon Scheyer. And of course, there's reaction that comes with that. And I don't necessarily want to go there. I will tell you the John Rothstein takeaway following the scrimmage. I saw his 3 big things on CBS Sports Network were Duke is Duke. And I was like, yep, there we go. Duke is Duke. All right. That's big time. Hopefully Duke can continue to lead the charge. That was the breaking takeaway from the practice.
I was just going to use that word. That's breaking. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we've got we do have some stats that you were kind of able to play through and work through at this practice. I want to dive into that here in just a moment. Conor O'Neill joins us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It has been a very, very disappointing baseball season for our Atlanta Braves here in Braves country. You look at the line tonight, Atlanta and Miami. Over-under for this one between the Braves and the Marlins is 8.5 runs with our friends over at FanDuel. Super exciting stuff. Conor O'Neill's Orioles are not in action, although it has been just as disappointing of a season for the O's. All that to say, go get in on the baseball action with our friends over at FanDuel. They've got you covered. Are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel is a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. He's Connor. I'm JJ. We're talking Duke basketball. Had to give a little love to our baseball teams that aren't playing so well. It really makes the summer a whole lot longer, Connor, when you don't even have an MLB team that you can get fired up about.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I appreciate the Orioles. They waited until I waited until their odds to make the playoffs were long, and then I made a couple bets on them to make the play. I did use FanDuel even, and I think within a week they had been swept in a doubleheader. Maybe lost a series to the Marlins when but I guess I didn't know the Marlins were going to surge to
now they're surging, yeah.
Picture now, but really made me extinguish my hope pretty quickly that I would get any kind of return on that $10.
Yeah, not much better in the life of Braves country. So let's move on to happier things, I guess. So I want to talk more about this open practice that Duke had. They put out several clips. Like I said, several fans that were on hand put up a lot of videos from the action. Duke had a couple of, it looked like 8-minute scrimmages. Tell me a little bit about this format that they had for the actual practice itself that required a bit of stat keeping on your part, Connor.
Yeah, so it did crack me up because for the first, 30 to 45 minutes, it was a lot of stretching. It was a lot of layup lines, and it was a lot of 3-on-0 or 5-on-0, which is basically just playing against air.
Right.
And I'm kind of sitting there, and it's like, we don't really get to watch Duke practices for basketball. We don't watch that many Duke football practices. I spend a lot of time watching Wake football practices because they're open. I see a couple Wake basketball practices. It's a nice reminder of when fans are sitting there and it's just kind of like, yeah, this is what an actual practice looks like. It's really boring most of the time. Like there are not many notes you can make when a team plays 5-on-0 because they're playing literally air.
Right. Those ghost defenders, man.
Yeah. I mean, hand down, man down. The man doesn't have any hands. The man's there. But they got into it. It was 3 8-minute scrimmages, and they put the score on the scoreboard was set to 60-60, and it was like the last 8 minutes of a game 3 times. The middle one, if I recall correctly, was the only competitive one, and that Isaiah Evans buzzer beater required his team blowing what I think was a 5-point lead in the last minute.
Wow.
I think it was a Caleb Foster 3-pointer, then a Caleb Foster steal, and a dish to Darren Harris. I believe Cam Boozer fouled him shooting a 3, And I apologize. I usually know who the refs are in Cameron, but I was so far away and I didn't do enough good research on it. I don't know who the refs were, but it was called a foul, and Darren Harris stepped up and made 3 free throws. And all of a sudden, like, I think they inbounded the ball with 7 or 8 seconds on the shot clock, and all of a sudden Isaiah's team was down 1. And but you're working some situational stuff. There was fouling to get the ball back, but not for like 2 minutes and extending it out longer than any of us needed to actually be there. And you also, I don't know that many teams want to really extend those out because you don't want teammates fouling each other all the time. Just to get some situational work in early August. So it was a good format. I thought it worked really well. Duke is almost completely healthy. The only exception is Malik Brown, who did everything before it was time to play 5-on-5 and live. That left shoulder is surgically repaired. It was twice dislocated last year. You don't need to run him out there, even if there's a 1% chance that he re-injures it. Yeah. You don't need to be taking that chance in August. So no Malik Brown. That made it a little bit of an easier matchup for Pat Gongba against Ife Ugochukwu. I'm going to have to work on that pronunciation, obviously.
Yeah, we'll work on it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Great format. I loved it.
It was really fun to see. And, for folks that were there, they did their best to kind of keep up with who's scoring, who's not. You put up what you dubbed the most unofficial stats that we would ever see. And folks saw this on Twitter. Also, if you're watching us currently on YouTube, you're able to see it. But, yeah, it's unless you're inside the mind of Conor O'Neill, which I guess you're the only one that can claim that, buddy. Wow. Yeah, here are some numbers.
That's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So if I run this down, all right, so the white and the blue at the top and then on the side to the left, those were the teams. So those are players' numbers.
Right.
The white, is Caleb Foster, Sebastian Wilkins is 5, Darren Harris is 8. 14 is Hamenia, and 21 is Gongba. These were the second and third scrimmages. So you can see at the top there, my page was folded over. I did the first scrimmage on the first page.
Right.
You see, like it is in order. It's descending, and it's one column and then go to the next column. So that's how you can tell the 3-pointer there at the bottom was Isaiah Evans' game winner. I tried to keep rebounds in the first scrimmage, and it's just so hard when you're also trying to track who misses a shot, because it's just there's a reason that stats on stat broadcasts are kept by SIDs digitally.
Right.
I'm a little old school. This is just the way that I was kind of taught how to cover things. So, I tried to make note of as many assists as I could. I probably missed a couple. I tried to note what kind of shots they were, because I wanted to know, who was scoring where, basically. So Pat Gongba, you see 21 layup several times on here. Pat Gongba's scoring at the rim. Exactly what you would expect.
Love it. And then a couple of these A's, you're crediting who the assist goes to with the jersey number there. I'm picking up. I'm following along here. The
quirky one that I kind of picked up when I had to do this covering high school sports. And when you're covering high school basketball, it's really important to keep your own stats, or you got to go find the book at the end of the game to make sure you have the right stuff. The little dots, like those are free throws. So a filled in dot is a made free throw. A empty dot is a missed free throw. So you see in the third scrimmage, in the third column, Pat Gongba got fouled by, that's a question mark because I don't know who fouled him. And Pat Gongba missed 2 free throws. So there's 2 empty dots there.
This is great stuff, Connor. This is absolutely great stuff.
It all makes sense up here.
Seriously, when you explain it, it's a running play-by-play, and people can go back to your profile and reference this, and then you've got more things over there at Devils Illustrated. But yeah, this is, as official as you're going to get for an event like this. I don't know that many other people were taking on this challenge that you were, and I appreciate it because it helps me kind of see what the flow of both of these teams were.
Yeah, my guy Rod Baxley works for USA Today Network and the Fayetteville Observer. He was taking them on his computer. And that's, Rod and I are not that far apart in age, but it's just more than anything, it's who taught you how to do these things. And I was taught by people that kept it freehand, running notes on a yellow legal pad. And so that's just always the way I've done it. During games, it's extremely helpful. I have a lot more of a kind of format for games. This was just kind of like, okay, I'm here in August. I'm going to figure out a way to do this as quickly as I can. I have a more structured thing for actual games. And it's really helpful to track trends. It's really helpful to track scoring runs. It's really helpful to track, I'll track points per possession on there.
So then the reactions right away are we all have similar things that we kind of go to be able to, put those thoughts together and that sort of thing. I love it, man. I think you look at what Duke was able to do. Again, we don't ever get looks like this 2 months before the season even gets going and that sort of thing. And 3 months before even November's here when the official games start to be played and whatnot. So kudos to Duke for putting on something like this. And yeah, we'll see how this continues here moving forward. All right, I want to pivot before we get out of here today. I do want to talk a little football, and we'll go from there as Locked On Blue Devils continues here in just a moment today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch here today. For your second listen, be sure that you check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape, including all things recruiting. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Also, check out Locked On College Basketball with hosts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Those guys do a great job of breaking down everything happening in the wide world of college hoops, and they're talking a whole lot about Duke these days as well. Check it out wherever it is that you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. All right, Conor O'Neill's here from Devils Illustrated. Let's talk football now. I guess while we're on topic, what is it like with the legal pad at a football game, Conor?
It's similar structure. There's a lot more written word in football. I find myself, I write like if Peyton Jones has a 7-yard run, it'll be 5 run 7. If Darian Mensah throws a completion to Samir Hagens, it'll be 10 pass. What's Samir Hagens? Number 2 for 18 yards.
Right.
Stars mark first downs. The start of every drive, I note the time and the yard marker for it. I'm not bored when I'm in a press box. I'm chatty, but I'm not bored. I'm able to multitask a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about football too is at least there's a little bit of, even in the life of a no huddle offense, for the most part, you've got enough time to jot down quickly what has happened, as opposed to basketball. They get the ball out of the net and we're running.
I'll tell you what, both basketball, one of the first teams I covered was the 2012 Carolina team with Kendall Marshall. That made me learn really fast that you cannot look down too far when the other team scores because the ball's going to be on the other side of the court in about 5 seconds.
Right.
And then, again, I apologize. I covered Duke, but 2 Carolina references in a row here. Covering Larry Fedora and that offense when they got to Chapel Hill and got going with the tempo immediately. That was a nice wake-up call for like, okay, you need to be able to write this quickly. And that helped me because Wake was, I think, 2019, 2021, they were maybe the fastest team in the country when it came to seconds between snaps. So
incredible.
If I can handle those, I can handle anybody's tempo offense or fast break offense.
Yeah, well, people are going to want to know what this offense looks like for Duke. Look at that segue there. Going into the second season of Manny Diaz as head coach with Darian Mensah at quarterback. The ACC network has kind of been going around to every single campus after ACC kickoff in Charlotte and being there for practice. And Duke just so happened to be the very first spot that they went to and getting to see a little bit behind the scenes of what these practice settings look like, what the offense is going to look like. What are those fall camp thoughts that you're having offensively right now for the Blue Devils?
For me, it's the offense is going to look different because you have a quarterback that can do multiple things. And then there's a nuanced way to talk about this without throwing too much shade at Malik Murphy. But you have to be realistic too. Darian Mensah can use his legs. He can throw off platform. He can make things happen. He's not a strict runner. I mean, he only ran for about, I think it was 250 yards sack adjusted last season. So it's about 20 yards a game. It's not like he's breaking off Michael Vick type runs,
right?
But there's the threat. And most coaches will tell you it's the threat of quarterback run that almost is more valuable than actual quarterback run, because as a defense has to respect it or they're going to give up a huge chunk play to the unaccounted man. And so it's going to look different offensively. Duke is coming along in the passing game. I would say it's going to be really interesting to see the timing of Darian Mensah with especially the two receivers that transferred in and weren't here in the spring. And that's Angelo Anthony and Cooper Barkate. It might be Barkate. I got to learn a lot of pronunciations apparently. You've got to build chemistry, and they did a good job of that in the summer, but you never know how good of a job you actually did until you get into games and until you get in a game setting and see how you have meshed with your guys. I think it's going to be a more efficient offense. I think they'll be able to run the ball better. It'd be hard to be a worse rushing offense than Duke had last year. I think they were 16th in the ACC, and the only one they were ahead of was Florida State. But they should be a lot more balanced and a little more explosive.
Truthfully, I really did try to forget how bad Duke was at running the football. And it is interesting that there's been such a big conversation about Duke through the air because you changed quarterbacks. You went from Malik Murphy to Darian Mensah. We've seen the numbers lately about how much Murphy struggled against pressure, although this guy still broke the Duke passing record. So you think so much passing. For me, at least, I forgot just how lousy Duke was at running the football. So, yeah, hopefully that can take a change to be a more kind of complete offense and that sort of thing. Offense coming together, meshing this time of year. Defense needs to do the same thing, although that's been a little bit easier for Duke over these last few seasons.
Yeah, I'm still blown away at how quickly players that excelled in one scheme were able to adjust and play so well in the new scheme last year. And it's a defense that there are a couple spots that they're really thin at, and I'd be really worried about them if they had an injury or two. But since we don't know about any of those yet, other than knowing Terry Moore will not be ready for the way Manny phrased it, the first part of the season. I don't know how nebulous a term that is, but they've got an All-American corner in Chandler Rivers. They've got two returning starters at defensive end. Aaron Hall was a great defensive tackle last year for them. They get Nick Morris Jr. back. He only played one game last year. Trey Freeman has been a monster for a couple years now. He's experienced at linebacker. It's going to be a pretty loaded defense.
I can't wait to see it all come together. And a first game against Elon. Then you've got the big one against Illinois in the non-conference, Darian Mensah's return trip to Tulane. And then the next thing you know, we're kind of into those big ACC games this season for Duke. So I know you've got it all covered right now. We talk both basketball and football, and all of that is available over on your site. How can people get tapped in and kind of support you, Connor?
Yeah, head on over to Devils Illustrated. I believe we figured out the last time I was on, if you type duke.rivals.com into the bar, you'll still get directed to the right place. The official address is on3.com/sites/devils-illustrated. I got to figure out a way to say that a little faster. Of course, you can just go to Google and put in Devils Illustrated, and it'll take you with one click. So hop in, sign up for a membership. It's $1 for the first week. Sign up for that. Check it out for a week. If you don't like it, hop off. If you do, welcome.
Love it. That's awesome. All right, Connor, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, JJ.
Connor O'Neill joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Go support his work over at Devils Illustrated. Really impressive stuff. Love his kind of breakdown and getting to hear what it takes to do the play-by-play on the legal pad throughout the course of the practice earlier this week, and big picture takeaways. This Duke basketball team's going to be really special. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.